Hello, everybody. Welcome to Relationship Real Talk, Live the Life's podcast.
For over 20 years, we have been dedicated to strengthening marriages and families through relationship education. For more information about us, you can visit us at livethelife.org. Welcome, everyone. I am Ashley.
I'm Alfonso.
And today our guest is Daryl Fletcher. Darryl is a speaker and a workshop facilitator. He serves as a mentor and coach to entrepreneurs and other business leaders. He's also the author of the best-selling book, Disgustingly Beautiful, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Couples. Darryl has also interviewed and coached over 1,000 couples as a relationship strategist, helping them have healthy and thriving relationships. So welcome, Darryl. We're so glad you're here.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the invitation. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you become the man you are today?
Well, I grew up in a two-parent family home. However, my dad passed away when I was 7 years old. And upon my father's passing, I remember just at 7 years old, he died from an illness, and I really wanted to change the world in that moment. I didn't want people to be sick anymore. I didn't want people to be hurting anymore. So I can remember as a 7-year-old boy saying that I wanted to be a doctor and help people not deal with illnesses anymore. Well, I did not become that physical doctor, but in essence, I became somewhat more of an emotional doctor, helping people overcome emotional and mental challenges that many people face today. So I didn't become the medical doctor, but in my field, I help a lot of people overcome emotional challenges, overcome challenges with mental challenges, communication challenges within their personal space and also in their professional space. So like you said in my bio, now it's over 2,000 couples and organizations that we have had an opportunity to engage and just really just help people overcome some challenges. And, we've taken on some new clients within the last couple of months. We've seen an increase in our clientele, especially with the pandemic, where you have a lot of couples who are dealing with issues because they're stuck at home. Many times within a relationship, the kids can be a distraction. Your job can be a distraction. Your hobbies can be a distraction. But when you're forced or coerced to be in front of someone that you can kind of take a break from, now you're faced with some of those issues that you could hide or disguise or really not even address. And so we've seen a lot of relationships just really be under a lot of strain due to the pandemic, because at the end of the day, many people were using their jobs and hobbies and getting out the house as a getaway or get out of jail free card, within their relationships. But at the end of the day, when you have those good communication skills and the rubber meets the road, now you can overcome and work through a plethora of challenges as long as you keep the main thing.
Wow. I love that. And you have a lot of really good stories, and you're a lover of horseback riding. So I remember you speaking at NARMI last year and telling us your horse story. So could you tell everyone the story? It's just, I love it. So I want to hear it again.
I love that story too, in actuality, because the story it's not only funny, it's just one of those things where I constantly see it on an everyday basis. So to our listeners, the story goes where at the time I did not have any horses, and I was a volunteer at this particular horse ranch. And I am tall. I'm 6'7", which is above average of the average sized man. And so it takes an above average horse in order for me to really have a good ride. So there was this one gentleman, he had a tall horse, and I really wanted to ride this horse because it was like, man, it's a perfect fit. I really want to ride this horse. And so I went to the owner of the horse and I said, hey, sir, I would really love to ride your horse. And his response was basically, hey, everybody that has attempted to ride this horse, that horse has bucked him off, and I won't be responsible if the horse bucks you off. And so I said, okay, no problem. I'll take up the challenge, and the horse won't buck me off, but we'll have a good ride. But before I rode the horse for a series of days, I would give the horse treats and wear a specific type of cologne. And I did this for a series, I would say, let's say 7 or 9 days. And the time came for me to ride the horse. And so I didn't bring any treats that particular day, but I did wear the cologne. Mm-hmm. And I entered the stall of the horse, put the bridle on the horse, put the saddle on the horse, walked the horse around a little bit. And of course, everyone was watching because they were waiting for me to get bucked off the horse. all the guys that had the horse that bucked off, they're looking on, and they're trying to figure out, okay, how long is he going to be able to stay on this horse? And I talked to the horse. I let the horse smell me, and I put one foot in the stirrup, and I got on the horse, and the horse shook as if he was going to actually buck, but he did not. And that particular instance taught me a valuable lesson that, it is more important to connect with something versus trying to control something. Mm. And the men that were usually trying to ride this horse, they were trying to control the horse. Mm. It didn't spend any time connecting. And we can translate that same principle to many areas of our lives. We can look at our lives and really begin to ask ourselves, what should I be connecting with versus trying to control it? Because if 2020 has taught us anything, is that control is an illusion. Mm-hmm. Many of us had plans, we had aspirations, we had goals, definitely, and that we thought we were all in control. But control is actually an illusion. But when we have the opportunity to connect, connection builds a bridge of empathy, and it builds a bridge of understanding. Mm. What do I mean by that? Well, when I built that connection with that horse connected with me. He associated the smell of the treats with the person that was giving him the treats. He's like, you know what? I really want to buck, but I remember the good times that I had, or the association of the good treats. So I'm not going to go my normal pattern. And so when we build that bridge of connection, especially where it pertains in our personal and our professional lives, we find that, many times we just have to build that connection with that person that may be hard to get along with. We may have to find out what they like before we can put demands on them. If we're in a leadership capacity, it may be something that, we need to learn more about the people that we're leading versus barking out orders. And then also putting ourselves in that particular person's shoes, because empathy is actually the secret sauce to accomplishing more and doing more in life. And when we begin to study how empathy works, it really puts us in a position to do more and accomplish more and be successful. And so when we do that, we have the opportunity to accomplish more and to be even a better person.
Yeah. And I mean, all of that is so awesome. And not only do you have these amazing stories and you're a speaker, but you've also written the Disgustingly Beautiful book. So tell us about what inspired you to write that.
Well, there were some tragic challenges that I was experiencing surrounding this book. So Disgustingly Beautiful is a book where I write to single people who are dating, and people who are married. And the book was birthed out of a situation where I had actually gone through a divorce. And in going through a divorce, I began to question myself of what actually makes a good relationship. And in that process, I would begin to talk to other people that were, had gone through a divorce or even being married, and just simply asking the question, what makes a good relationship? And it started as a journal. Disgusting Beautiful actually started as a journal because I needed healing from my previous relationship. I needed healing, and I made the choice to be better. and not to be bitter. So many times people come from divorce and I'll never get married again. That wasn't my testimony. I really desired to be married. I really desired to be in a relationship, but unfortunately, my first wife, things didn't work out that way. And so I took it upon myself to really just take a position of what did I need to learn from that previous relationship that I can be a better person in my next relationship. And many people don't actually take the time to pause and ask those questions. They're so busy trying to get back into another relationship, or they're so busy trying to mask the pain of the relationship in another relationship. And so I just begin to journal and I begin to talk about some of the things. And the title of the book actually came from watching older people who were actually married. It was a beautiful display of love. It was a beautiful display of camaraderie and connection and just two people who have been together for 20, 30, 40 years. And it was also disgusting because when you see that type of love, the mushy, gushy love, it's a beautiful thing. But you don't want to see two old people being mushy and gushy. So that's where the title actually came from, because it was a disgustingly beautiful picture. Because everybody wants to be old and gray and with that person that they've been with for a long time. But we don't necessarily want to go through the disgusting times. We don't want to necessarily go through the ugly times. So with this book, I interviewed over 250 couples and 250 people, and I interviewed people from a couple that was on their first date to a couple that had been married for 54 years.
Wow.
And in that, we learned some valuable lessons, and we learned that, love is not a feeling. Love is a commitment to a decision. And we have to be committed to the decision long after the feeling wears off. Oh, it's euphoric in the beginning and everything is beautiful, but it's really about a decision. I made the decision to love, and I'm going to commit to that decision. And it's more a commitment to the action. How can I prove I love this person? How can I prove that I am in connection with this person? And once again, it's empathy. If I put myself in your shoes and try to see things from your perspective, then it's no longer a tug of war. Then we're actually on the same side, pulling in the same direction. I talk about it in my book, where you have to, when you get to the dating stage, where you have to actually put yourself in the position where this person, they are not my enemy. They're actually my ally. And when they are my ally, I don't see them as contrary. I see them as a compliment.
That's awesome. I really like that.
Wow. There's a lot of shame surrounding divorce and just that topic overall. And discussing with Ashley before this interview, she said that you've talked about your struggles and what you had to go through after your divorce. Can you shed some light and talk about how you overcame that sense of shame?
Sure. That process is a long process, and that's what we have to really begin to understand and see, especially in our modern day age. We have to embrace process. Many people, just think about it. I ordered something from Amazon the other day, and it showed up on my doorstep within a couple of days, or even, and in some instances, it might be a day or a couple of hours, because I'm a Prime member. And with that, we're kind of subconsciously tricked into thinking everything has to be immediate. Everything, like if I wanted some Chinese food right now, I could go to DoorDash and it'll be ready in 15 minutes. I could, if I wanted to go somewhere, I could hop on a plane, which would normally take, maybe 5 hours. I'd get there in 45 minutes. And we're conditioned subconsciously and even consciously that certain things are to be immediate. And so in our modern day technology and our modern day age, we have to get back to just really understanding the process. And so some of the things that I went through that, that were being painful through going through a divorce was realizing my mistakes and embracing them. Realizing my shortcomings and embracing them. I talk about it in my book, and it's actually one of the monikers that I tell my students when I'm working with them, whether it be on horses or even in a coaching session, and that is, you cannot conquer what you're not willing to confront.
I like that.
Most people will shove things up under the rug. Most people will pacify and make excuses of why things didn't work and this and that. But if you really want to be a better human, you have to confront those childhood challenges that you may have faced. You have to confront some of the bad habits that you may have done. And I talk about it in my book, and I ask the question in the dating section of, would you date you? And most people think that they are a great catch. Oh, I'm this and I'm that. I bring all this to the table. And yes, you bring all those things to the table. But you know what else you bring to the table? You bring your baggage. Let's think of it this way. Let's say you take a trip to Las Vegas. And on that trip, you have a great time. And you just have a great time. You're there in Vegas. And while you're there in Vegas, you're there for 5 days. And then your phone rings, and it's your best friend. And your best friend says, hey, I know you're in Vegas, but I want you to join me in Miami. Come, forget your plans. Fly straight from Vegas to Miami. And you're like, well, I don't have any change of clothes. He says, don't worry about it. We'll buy some new clothes when you get there. It's on me. So you take those bags from your trip to Vegas and you fly to Miami, and you got those old bags and some of that stuff in that bag is starting to stink. And then right before you end your trip from Miami to Miami, the other good friends, because, hey, man, we're in New York, and, man, we are having the time of our life. We wanted you here. And so you said, okay, I'll go to New York. So now you got a bag from Las Vegas, a bag from Miami, and you're in New York. And guess what? Somebody calls you and says, hey, why don't you come with me to Jamaica? So you go from Vegas to Miami, New York to Jamaica, and all along you never unpacked your bag, and everything in that bag is beginning to stink and is beginning to have an odor. That's how many people embrace relationships. They go from relationship to relationship. They go from situation to situation, never really unpacking the bag, but constantly getting into a new situation, constantly getting into a new relationship. And those bags stink. And every time they show up, yeah, they have a great time. But sooner or later, those bags, everyone else will start to smell those bags too. So sooner or later, the past, if you don't deal with it, it's going to tap you on your shoulder and be your present. That's why it's so important that we have to unpack, detox, and break the cycle of bad relationships by simply trying to be a better person and unpack our good, our bad, and our ugly.
And would you say that's the number one issue in relationships? Just bringing different baggage and not actually confronting issues that they've been encountered with?
I would not say that it is the number one thing, but one of the greatest challenges that I see within relationships is three things. One is immaturity. 2 is lack of communication. And 3 would be unforgiveness. And the reason why those are 3 common threads is because I don't care if you're having relationship issues. If you cannot communicate, That's a sign of immaturity.
Hmm.
And many times the reason why we hold grudges is because we hold unforgiveness in our heart. And if we haven't forgiven ourselves, how can we forgive someone else? If we can't communicate and be honest with ourselves about what we really feel and what we really go through, then how can we forgive about, how can we forgive someone else? Oh, communicate with something else. I was just doing a session last night with a client, and it's a married young lady where she's dealing with some challenges from her marriage. And I asked her about her own personal space. And when I asked her about her own personal space, she talked about her regrets, and she talked about some of the things that she had not forgiven herself from.
Mm.
So here it is. She's trying to be in a relationship or a marriage and forgive a man that may have done her wrong, but she has yet to forgive herself. So you can't give someone something that you don't possess.
Mm.
So I had to forgive myself in my past relationships. I had to purge myself. I had to process myself. I had to go through all those things in order to be at the place where I am today. And I still go to my therapy sessions, talking things out, hashing things out, and just really getting to a place where, I am free. Because I can't be the man to love my wife better if I'm still stuck in my past. So processing those things, and it's not just a one-time deal. Many times people come to me and they'll do a counseling session or a coaching session, and they feel good, and and they'll do another one, and they'll do a third one, and they're like, okay, we're good, and they'll fall off the map. They'll stop taking sessions. And because they had a, quote unquote, a breakthrough. But at the end of the day, if you look at Tom Brady, if you look at LeBron James, if you look at Tiger Woods, they did something consistently in order to be great. It's not just a one-time deal. It's not just a one-time shot. You have to consistently practice, and you have to constantly practice letting go. Constantly practice forgiving. Constantly practice communication. Being very candid, just last week, my wife and I, my current wife and I, we had a different point of view on the subject. We didn't argue. We didn't raise our voices. But it was a lot of tension in the house for about a day and a half. And the tension was, I didn't necessarily know how to express myself in a healthy manner without being malicious. So I held what I had to say until I was ready to communicate and say what I had to say in a beneficial manner. In a manner that I can say, well, going forward, I want to handle blank like this. And that is one of the tools that I use within my coaching space, where we help people to look at things from the standpoint of going forward, this is how I want to handle blank. And that's how we have to handle ourselves as individuals. That's how we have to handle ourselves if we want to be better leaders, better human beings, is constantly pushing the envelope of being better and looking forward and not being stuck in the past.
I like that. And just as a follow-up to that, a lot of people, when we're talking about relationship education and therapy, a lot of the concepts aren't necessarily, rocket science. And when you hear them out loud, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. So what have you seen be a roadblock to people coming to the realization that, wow, I have unhealthy tendencies and I need help? What are some of the reasons that people don't get help?
Well, some of the common thread that I see is people make themselves busy to not feel. And many times, especially when you have a case, and I'm kind of shifting gears for a second, with the subject of promiscuity. With the subject of promiscuity, many times people are promiscuous because either they're trying to numb themselves or they're trying to feel something.
Mm.
And that is the common thread that we will see in many of the cases that of people that we will help. They are so busy and they're trying to keep themselves busy so that they won't feel the pain. Or they're so busy that they really won't have to face the facts. And so they'll say, well, if I do this, if I do this, if I do this, if I do this, then I really won't, have to deal with that pain. And the challenge with that is you'll run yourself into a depression. You'll run yourself into a place of where you're just not really happy.
Mm-hmm.
And not enjoying life. You're just living life and life will live you. And so one of the tactics that I use when I'm using equine therapy, we call it equine assisted learning. So with equine assisted learning, especially working with couples or dealing with people who have dealt with different challenges of depression or even empathy, I'll say to them, I'll give them the instructions on riding the horse, and the horse may do something. And when the horse does something, they are saying, well, the horse is going left when I want it to go right. Well, let's look at the instructions that I gave you in the beginning and see if you're doing those. And then most of the time they'll say no. And because I'll say this expression, you have to be actively engaged in riding the horse. It is not a car. You cannot sit back and relax. Because if you're not actively engaged, then the horse will take you on a ride versus you riding the horse. We will flip that same concept into a person's life. If you are not actively engaged in healing, if you're not actively engaged in being a better person, if you're not actively engaged in embracing some of your shortcomings and your faults, then life will live you and you won't be living life.
Wow.
And so we have to basically embrace those challenges. Don't be scared. It's okay. But once you embrace them, now you have the opportunity to really deal with them. And once again, it goes right back to the statement that I said earlier. You will never conquer what you're not willing to confront. So yes, if you struggle with promiscuity, fine. Now that you've acknowledged it, here's what we can do about it.
Yeah.
But as long as you lie, or as long as you're lying to yourself about it, then you'll continue to have that same pattern.
Yeah.
If you struggle with financial issues, then you will continue to have those financial issues if you refuse to confront it. So as we coach people to a healthier life, now we have the opportunity to really begin to understand, okay, here's what I've been dealing with. Here's what I need to, here's where I want to go. How do I get there? And then we can create what we call a roadmap. Because here's the thing, I alluded to this earlier. Control is an illusion. And if control is an illusion, many times what people, they want their situation to change. They don't want to change. When in actuality, the only thing that they can control is themselves. So how do we control ourselves? Through certain disciplines that we have to put ourselves in alignment with. Think of it this way. The Department of Motor Vehicles or the Department of Transportation puts guardrails along the highway. And they put those guardrails along the highway, not in an effort to control you, but they are there in an effort to protect you. God forbid you lose control. Those guardrails are there so that you will not run into the ditch. Yes, if you lose control, your car may be damaged, but it won't be flipped up over on its side because there was a guardrail there. So look at the disciplines that you may need to implement in your life as guardrails. Nobody's trying to tell you, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. However, if there is a destination that you're trying to get to, And let's allow some guardrails to be placed into our lives so that we would have the opportunity to be better and be safe and get to our destination.
Yeah. And I love that mental picture of, someone in a relationship. I think a lot of the times we can think, "Oh, I'm on cruise control. It's not a big deal." But if you're trying to be on cruise control, you're not riding a car, you're riding a horse. It's a living, breathing thing, and it's not a machine, it's not a robot. It's got feelings. You have to be actively engaged. So I love that point.
Exactly.
And just for anybody that's struggling in marriage, do you have any words of encouragement you would like to tell them?
Yes. My word of encouragement to persons that may be struggling in relationships or marriages, I would say to them that everything is fixable.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is fixable. The challenge is we try to rush through the healing process. Everything can be forgiven. Everything can be worked out. But so many people have the mindset that, oh my gosh, I could never get over blank. And here that there may be some truth to that from the essence of reconciliation. But at the end of the day, there might be an issue there that is actually a personal issue. Because I say this in the book, most relationship issues are not relationship issues. They are personal issues that have manifested in the relationship. And if we're willing to walk through and commit, let's just think of marriage from the standpoint of a covenant. If you take a standpoint from a covenant, then this is a lifelong commitment, not just hey, as long as things going good, we're good. No, this is a commitment of ups, downs, ins, outs. As long as you have that mindset that we can work on this and work through this, then your marriage can be fixable. And so the encouragement that I would give is that you may not be able to do it on your own. You may need some help. You may need someone that can walk through those particular steps with you. And as you walk through those steps and as you walk through those challenges, someone that can hold your hand and say, you know what, you can do this, you can get better. But trying to do it on your own is a very challenging place. And then the last thing that I would say in that particular realm is what I alluded to earlier, forgiveness. You cannot be in a healthy marriage holding grudges. And that's what most people, they're holding on to something that happened 6, 7, 10 years ago, where they have never really actually forgiven the person. And if they never really actually forgave the person, then no healing will take place ever.
Yeah. And I think that's so good what you're talking about. There's always hope. And, we've seen couples come back from the craziest situations and they have that hope, they have that redemption. But, it does take two. And sometimes, we find people that they have been through divorce and the other person wasn't willing to work through it with them. And for whatever reason, they're in that pain of having gone through a divorce. So for the people that might be in that category, what advice would you have for them?
For the people who want to be.
Sorry, for the people that have been through divorce, that wanted to reconcile, but for whatever reason they went through it and now they're on the other side, they're divorced. What would you say to them?
I would say to them, embrace you as an individual and forgive yourself. And that's one thing that I really had to do. Prior to my divorce, I had never been to the movies by myself. Never. And after my divorce, I really went to the movies maybe once or twice by myself. And so, embracing who you are as an individual, because many people don't even know themselves outside of their relationship, because they begin to take on the identity of the other person or the characteristics of the other person, and they kind of, quote unquote, lose themselves. Getting back to the place of where you are great as an individual, because in all honesty, let's just be honest, not every person is supposed to be married. Mm. I know it's an aspiration, and I know in many religious circles, it's something that they teach, but not everyone is supposed to be married. From the aspect of just looking at a person's life, if you're selfish, go ahead and be selfish by yourself. Don't bring that selfish nature to another relationship. But to the people who are just, hey, I know that I'm called to be married, or hey, I know, I went through this divorce. I would just tell yourself, give yourself some time and forgive yourself and love yourself before you try to love someone else. Because if not, doesn't matter. You will go through. If I could borrow a story from the Bible, when Jesus was sitting down at the well, and the woman at the well she had been with five different other men. He basically said to her and said, like, hey, I know your past, and you've been with 5 different men, and the one you're with right now, he's not your husband. And so basically we see the pattern of broken relationships. Mm. And so for those who may have gone through divorce, let's start recognizing some of your patterns, that you don't want to get into another relationship or another situation where you're doing the same thing. It's okay to be by yourself for a little while. It's okay. It's okay to not rush it. Mm. It's okay to be single and happy. And there's an old Asian saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And one of the things that I do when I'm talking to singles, I tell them, when you are ready, your mate will appear. Mm. So focus on being a good individual. Another story I can borrow from the Bible is the story of Esther, and how she basically laid at Boaz's feet. And here it is. She was busy in her purpose when Boaz found her to be most beautiful. And many women don't understand their purpose, or many individuals, I won't just say women, but many individuals won't understand their purpose. I believe your purpose will draw the right person to you, because at the end of the day, it's one of those things that, you really have to really focus on and be fixed upon, and it will draw the right person to you at the right time.
Wow. I like that a lot. So thank you so much, Darryl. That was, wow, a lot of really good stuff. And if you're listening and you want more information, you can go to Darryl's website. It's darylfletcherspeaks.com. And his book is called Disgustingly Beautiful, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly of Couples. And it's available on Amazon. It's an amazing book. I read it, and I can definitely recommend it. But again, thank you so much, Darryl, for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you again.
No problem. Did you have anything else you wanted to say before we get out of here?
You can find me on social media, or what is that? That is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Daryl Fletcher Speaks. If you want to learn more information about our organization and working with horses, you can find us on Facebook, and that is Stretch Out on